You know, every so often, something happens that just tears up the old rulebook. An action so bold, it sends a signal to the entire world that the game has completely changed. We just saw one of those moments, and we're going to break down what it really means for all of us. So picture this. It's January 3rd, 2026, and the world wakes up to absolutely shocking news. U.S. Special Forces launched a raid into Venezuela and captured its sitting president, Nicolas Maduro. This image, which came out shortly after, shows him on a U.S. warship. He's on his way to New York to face narco-terrorism charges. I mean, this has never happened before. And then, just a few hours later, you get this incredibly blunt statement from President Trump. No diplomatic niceties, no ambiguity, just a raw, powerful statement of intent that absolutely echoed around the globe. Look, this was so much more than just arresting one guy. It was a deliberate, calculated move, and it was designed to send a very, very powerful message. But a message about what? And why do it now? To really get that, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Right, so this whole operation, it didn't just come out of nowhere. It's actually the direct result of these huge underlying shifts in the global balance of power, shifts that have been picking up speed for years. And that really gets us to the heart of it, doesn't it? What changed? What made such a high-risk, high-stakes move not just possible, but in Washington's eyes, totally necessary? Well, the answer really lies in three huge global trends. First up, you've got the AI boom, which is just completely transforming economies and financial markets. Then you've got China's rise as an economic superpower. It's now a true peer competitor to the US for the first time in a long time. And third, at the exact same moment, you've got the erosion of American institutions, which is threatening its own power. It's a pretty dangerous mix. Let's dig into each one. So this first shift, what it's done, is create this kind of two-speed American economy. On the one hand, you've got this explosive growth, we're talking over 50%, in anything related to AI. But on the other hand, investment in basically the rest of the economy, it's actually going down. It's a massive boom for the tech world, but it's a real struggle for everyone else. At the exact same time, you've got China. I mean, they're not a rising power anymore. They've arrived. Beijing is now a full-on strategic competitor. They're using their economic muscle to gain influence everywhere, including right in America's own hemisphere. And by controlling supply chains for critical stuff like rare earths, they have this incredible leverage they can pull in any dispute, which is a direct challenge to the way the US has operated for decades. And this is where things get really interesting. It's kind of the central paradox for the US right now. Even while it's dominating this next wave of technology, its deep political divisions and what many see as the decay of its own institutions are making the world question its reliability. And that's a huge problem, because it undermines its greatest source of power, its role as the stable anchor of the whole international financial system. Okay, so if you put all that together, a divided America, a rising China, and shaky global confidence, suddenly the raid in Venezuela doesn't look so random, right? It looks a lot more like a direct, calculated response, a massive gamble to try and rewrite the rules of the game. And this is the actual policy that's driving all this. People are calling it the Trump corollary. In a nutshell, it's a really muscular 21st century version of the old Monroe Doctrine. And its goal is simple: push back hard against rivals like China and Russia in America's own backyard and reestablish total U.S. dominance in the region. And believe me, the goals here were crystal clear. This was never just about Maduro. It was about showing rivals like Russia and China the door in Caracas. It was about sending a chilling message to other regimes in the area, like in Cuba and Colombia, that not cooperating has serious consequences. And it was about showing the entire world that the U.S. is willing to use decisive force to get what it wants. Well, as you can imagine, a move this big was going to send shockwaves everywhere. And the reactions, they were immediate, they were intense, and they were all over the map. The debate over whether this was even legal just exploded. On one side, you have analysts saying this is a clear win for global security. You get rid of a corrupt dictator, you push back against adversaries, and hey, you give the Venezuelan people a real shot at a better future. But on the other side, legal experts are calling it a complete violation of international law, a crime of aggression that really undermines the whole idea of national sovereignty, no matter how bad Maduro's rule was. But you know, beyond all the legal arguments, there's the money. America's biggest source of power for a long, long time has been the US dollar being the world's main currency. It's often called the exorbitance privilege, this huge advantage you get when the world depends on your cash. But that privilege, It depends entirely on global trust and predictability. And a move like this, well, it puts that trust to the test. And this one number, it really says it all. 58%. That is how much of the world's foreign exchange reserves are currently held in US dollars. That is an incredible position of dominance. But if other countries start to doubt the stability of the US system, they might just start looking for other options, and that huge number could begin to shrink. You can bet that every rival capital, from Tehran all the way to Beijing, is watching this and taking notes. For a country like Iran, the message is especially clear. The quick, decisive nature of this raid sends a signal that Washington's patience for long, drawn-out conflicts and negotiations is running really thin. The new preference seems to be for short, sharp uses of force that get a result. So that brings us back to Venezuela. With Maduro gone, what happens now on the ground? The country's at a real crossroads, and experts are basically seeing 3 different ways this could go. Okay, best case? A peaceful, negotiated handover of power to the opposition that actually won the last election, avoiding any major violence. Then there's the middle ground, some kind of prearranged secret deal where certain US-backed people inside the old government take control. And then there's the worst-case scenario, and it's pretty grim. The regime completely falls apart, splinters into warring groups, and the country gets plunged into a long, bloody guerrilla war. And that's why this is so important to understand. Capturing Maduro? That was just the start. It's not the end. The real measure of whether this operation was a success won't be a picture on a warship. It'll be whether the Venezuelan people finally get their basic right to choose their own leaders in a free and fair election. Ultimately, when you really step back, this whole event in Venezuela forces us all to ask a much, much bigger question. We are living through a time of massive global change, where the old rules just don't seem to apply anymore. This operation was a clear attempt by the United States to grab the pen and start writing the next chapter. The real question is, will the rest of the world be willing to read from that script?